Right, this one is going to look at Karun Chandok's role in validating Abu Dhabi. Before I get into this, I just want to remind you of something, and that is this picture here, lap 56. So at the end of lap 56, we see the safety car leading round the safety car train. This is just before the start of lap 57, and what you can see in the centre of the screen is the marshals in the orange overalls departing the track. Now, the race director cannot give the order for the lapped cars to unlap until the track is declared safe by the clerk of the course. That is the facts of the matter. Now, clearly, whilst there are marshals on track, the track isn't safe. So, number one, the marshals have to depart the track. Number two, there has to be somebody there capable of doing an inspection and declaring it clear and safe. Okay, that will take time. That time will mean that all these cars and the safety car will be on lap 57 at the earliest before that order can be given. That's a fact. There is no other option. That is a fact. Therefore, if the earliest that the order for the lapped cars to be released is on lap 57, lap 58 has to be completed behind the safety car. It is as simple as that. That is what the rules are, and the rules are there for a purpose, as evidenced in my other videos. Now that I've just covered that, we're going to go back to what Karun Chandhok has to say. Right, so here goes.
F1 driver Karun Chandhok. Good afternoon to you. I'll come to the details of what David Croft was saying in just a moment. But first to that very considered, maybe downbeat performance from Toto Wolff, suggesting that he, and in particular Lewis Hamilton, might not have the appetite to carry on. What do you think?
I think they're still feeling the pain of the title loss from Abu Dhabi. Personally, I would be very surprised if we don't see.
Look at Karun Chandhok's eyes. If anybody's watched any analytical crime programs about when the little tells that criminals can give when they're telling the truth and when they're lying. Look at Chandhok's eyes. Look at his eyes when he's answering this, and then later on when he's answering something else.
Either of them in Bahrain next season at the opening Grand Prix. I think Lewis, yes, he's hurt, and Toto's hurt, and at the moment, you know, as Toto said, they're feeling a bit disillusioned with the sport. But I think ultimately they want to come back and chase that goal of becoming a world champion for the 8th time, or certainly Lewis does, because that's, you know, will set him apart as being statistically the all-time greatest in every metric of the sport. And I still believe we will see him on the grid next year.
What about some of the substance of what David Croft was saying just there in that excerpt we've just played, that quite a lot needs to change, essentially, in the way Grand Prix are run week in, week out?
Okay, now pay attention to Chandhok's eyes as he answers this.
100% agree. You know, I think what's become clear this weekend is that whatever the decision-making process was for that final call wasn't the right one. In certainly in a couple of ways. You know, look, what we can't change, or what Lewis and Toto couldn't change, was Nicholas Latifi having an accident 5 laps before the end of the race. Latifi had a crash, and absolute normal procedure was to call the safety car out in that instance. I don't think anyone can doubt that. That's just bad luck for Lewis. Back in 2008, he got lucky. He got a rain shower towards the end of the race.
Okay, so we can call it bad luck, but actually, it's not bad luck if the rules aren't broken, because it didn't change the end result if the rules aren't broken. Latifi crashed, safety cars deployed, the accident can't be cleared up in time, race finishes behind the safety car, Lewis Hamilton wins the race, wins the World Championship. So that's not bad luck. Okay, that's just a continuation of what was going to happen anyway had Latifi not crashed. Okay, so don't describe it as bad luck, because what you're doing is you're actually glossing over, you're not addressing the problem, but you're referring to it as being bad luck. And you are also then comparing that to fortune of it raining in a Grand Prix and some of the cars not being on wet weather tyres, causing them to slow down, which meant that Lewis Hamilton overtook somebody. So you're comparing two completely different things to say, oh, well, one's bad luck and one's good luck. No.
That was a benefit for him, and he won that championship. So Latifi crashing at a time that was not suitable to Lewis's bad luck. I think what they're upset about is the way the last lap unfolded, where only certain cars were allowed to unlap themselves, which was highly unusual, and also the procedure.
As in, never happened before, because the rules dictate that that's not allowed to happen for reasons.
Procedure where the safety car was called into the pits straight away after the lap cars were let pass. And I think where the FIA could have really helped themselves is by making that decision earlier. If they had made the decision 30, 40 seconds earlier, and that's all we're talking about, 40 seconds earlier, they would have got all the lap cars passed. They would have made the decision before the penultimate lap, and all the right procedures and processes would have been followed. And in the end, everyone would have sat there and gone, it was just bad luck for Lewis that Latifi crashed.
So this is what you've told everybody, Karun, and you've convinced everybody. You've convinced all the Max fans, all these pricks that jump up in the comments section saying, oh, they should have all unlapped the cars earlier. So that's what could have happened. Right, shall we go back to the picture? This one here, on lap 56, turn 14, lap 56, which clearly shows it's not possible to release those lapped cars at that moment in time, and therefore it's going to be lap 57 at the earliest that they can be released on, and therefore it dictates that a safety car finish is mandatory. But instead, you give us that crap that you've just given us.
But because the procedures weren't followed to a T, that's what's created this whole, this whole storm.
It's also a...
Okay, because the procedures weren't followed to a T, that's what's created this whole storm. So what are the implications of that, Karun? Why do they need to be carried out to a T? You don't tell us. You don't inform us of that, do you? You don't tell us why the safety car rules are what they are and who's impacted by them. Whose events were ruined by doing what was done. You don't do that. You don't point out that it was absolutely wrong and that it completely negated the valid strategy call made by Mercedes in deciding, in calculating that that incident was likely to end up in a safety car finish. Because all the stats point at that, and that's what they will make their decision making on. And it took the race director breaking the rules to change that. What you also, you're part of the cover up because you don't focus, you say nothing about the fact that Brundle and Crofty are lying to the fans of the sport about the rules of the sport before Massey breaks the rules of the sport. Clearly, you don't mention the fact that F1 TV are creating the narrative, feeding to the global audience this narrative of what was possible, what we were likely to see, which wasn't in accordance with the rules. But instead, now you're interviewed to give us the validation, tell us what to focus in on. Okay, admit, oh yeah, this wasn't good, this is what people are upset by. But you know what? You're not focusing on what is actually the relevant factors because none of you are. You're all diverting, you're all gaslighting, you're all drawing people's attention in different directions giving people fake validation, giving people ammunition to jump up in the comment section with misinformation to cause arguments. You're filthy.
A lack of clear communication, isn't it? If you listen to, you can see it on the Sky Sports website, the edited version of the drivers talking to their teams about what was going on and what wasn't going on in those few laps right at the end of the race. They clearly could not understand what was happening.
But what is interesting, even within that, is
Answer the question. What is interesting? Okay. Well, the drivers know the rules of the sport. They've all been involved in safety car situations. They know how it works. Okay? They know how it works. And they know that the lapped cars had to be released at the latest before the end of lap 56, so that lap 57 could be that mandatory safety car lap, so that lap 58 could be a racing lap. If that wasn't possible, it's a safety car finish. It's as simple as that. All the drivers know that. All of them know that. And if they don't, they shouldn't be in the sport. They shouldn't have a super license, because that should be part and parcel of understanding the rules of the sport and how things operate in order to get your license. In order to drive on the roads, you need to pass your driving tests. That includes a theory element of all the things you need to be understanding of and aware of in order to be able to use the roads. You'd think in order to get a super license, part of that would be understanding the rules and regulations of the sport and the procedures and processes, so they know.
drivers such as Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso, the two experienced champions, multiple champions.
Not just them, every single one.
Knew straight away that if they wanted this race to finish under green flag conditions, they had to release the lap cars. You know, Fernando was calling it from 4 laps from the end. Vettel was calling it from 3 or 4 laps from the end. So they could see it unfolding. They could already see that these processes had to happen for them to be able to restart.
And it's not just the drivers that could see it. The fans that actually understand the sport know what is possible. We know that Brundle was lying, saying they don't have to release the lapped cars. It's not mandatory. Lies, Brundle. As I've proven the implications of, as I've demonstrated, the rules don't say that at all, Brundle. They only say if it's safe to do so. Which means if it's not safe to do so, it's not safe to go racing. Simple. Check the other videos out for that. I'm trying to keep this one short.
The race with all the lap cars let through. So when those two drivers in the heat of the battle in the race car without all of this other information could see that, the FIA do have to think about why they couldn't see that.
Well, the answer is they could see that. They know the rules. Massey has demonstrated that he knows the rules. But there was a bigger master plan, wasn't there? There was a bigger master plan because F1 TV created the narrative. Sky Sports F1 narrated the narrative by lying about the rules of the sport, conditioning viewers to believe that it was possible to restart that race in the various ways that they presented was possible, which none of them were, lying to viewers. And then Massey broke the rules in accordance with the sorts of things that Brundle and Crofty had been describing in the lead up to it. Then, rather than acknowledge that it was wrong and correct it, the FIA confirmed it when the 4 stewards rejected Mercedes' valid appeal. And then the FIA once again confirmed it with their 2.5-month long review, which was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. A 15-year-old child could have done better, and I am going to expose and evidence that. And what are you telling us about it, Chandok? Nothing. Once again, you're just serving to confirm the narrative and condition everybody to accept it. And what you're also doing is throwing in their elements in order to convince the Max fans, give the Max fans the ammunition and the validation, and try and convince people that, oh, it was kind of okay, it was not okay, but you know, let's hear what you've got to say
Do we
about
also
Max.
need a ruling that team bosses, teams can't talk to and lobby the race director during the race?
So you're focusing on this element of it now because you're trying to draw attention away from the real crux of the problem. Because the real crux of the problem is the systematic corruption. And you're trying to put all this on, oh, Toto Wolff is having a go at the race director, and Red Bull, some of them are talking to the race director, and it's because of that that all this problem happened. No, it's not. That's not. This was a pre-planned event.
Race.
Yes, I think that's important. You know, at the end of the day, this should be a sport which is controlled by the regulatory body, i.e. the FIA, and they shouldn't have
So who's it controlled by then, Karun? If it's not controlled by the FIA, who is it controlled by?
to face pressure from the competitors. I think that's wrong, and that should change for next year.
Well, it's not controlled by the competitors, is it?
It was, in the end, Max Verstappen's first title, what he's been dreaming of for so many years, and there was praise for him from Mercedes as well. Is there any sense within him or within the sport that he sort of needs to win it without all this controversy so that he's seen as a champion without an asterisk, if you know what I mean?
Well, I'm sure the Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes fans feel that, but you know, listen, my personal view is that Max is a deserving world champion.
That word deserved, okay? Deserved. We heard that hundreds of times about Max Verstappen. Fully deserved, okay? Not a single mention of winning something. To win something, you've got to validly accomplish the preset criteria. Max didn't do that.
In every race he finished this year, he was first or second.
Okay. But he didn't. The only race that Lewis Hamilton didn't finish was Monza, where Max ended up on top of his head. So everything you want to tell us about Max, well, he didn't finish some of them races. He took himself out of Monza by taking Lewis out. He took himself out of Silverstone by trying to chop across the nose of Lewis. He was unfortunate in having a tyre blowout in Baku, okay? And he was unfortunate by being involved in a multi-car pileup. Well, I think he still finished in Hungary. But these things happen. They're all part and parcel of motor racing, okay? Lewis Hamilton finished every race apart from Monza. Surely that is a level of experience and pragmatism in the knowledge that all you've got to do is accumulate as many points as you can at every event to add to your season-long total. And then you get to the end of the season, and the person who has accumulated the most amount of points is the champion. So all the other statistics are actually irrelevant. So, you know, you can eulogise about somebody, but really the only thing that matters is the season-long total.
18 out of the 22 races. He soaked up the pressure brilliantly. And yes, we're all talking about Abu Dhabi because it was right at the end and Max got lucky with...
Soaked up the pressure, okay. You're not talking about the time where he drove Lewis off the track in Brazil. He virtually, he did drove Lewis off the track in Saudi. He brake tested Lewis in Saudi. There were numerous occasions. You did your analysis of the 5 occasions where you described Max's understeering approach to overtaking, where he basically just drives and cuts the other driver off and drives them off the track without being penalised. Disgusting. Not permitted in motor racing. Totally dangerous. Okay? But, you know, you're eulogising about this guy. You're not in any way pointing out the fact that the FIA let him get away with vile driving throughout that season. because what they wanted to do is usher him towards becoming a champion. They manufactured it for him. And all you're doing is going, oh yeah, look at Max, he fully deserved it. What a great champion Max is. Yeah, we know exactly what happened.
That safety car and Latifi's crash at the end. By his own admission, he knows he got lucky. But you only have to rewind to earlier in the year, in April, when...
It's not luck. It's being manufactured as that winner of that event. You're not a true champion. You'll never be a true champion.
Lewis was stuck in the gravel trap, trying to reverse, lost nearly a minute, and he got lucky because there was an accident between his teammate Bottas and George Russell, his future teammate, and that brought out a red flag, and Lewis got lucky. And if that...
So you're trying to compare an incident in a race that happened earlier in the season where the rules of the sport were followed and circumstances just played out the way they did. If you remember back to Imola, Russell and Bottas collided. Both cars were taken out. Debris was strewn over the track, making that track unsafe, unpassable. Had cars been driving around over that, there could have been multiple punctures, multiple more incidents. So the race director, with absolute validation, threw the red flag to say we need time to clear all this up and get on the track and clear all that debris off. Okay? As it happened, that time enabled Lewis Hamilton. You know, had he not have had that time, it'd have been a lot further down the field. And it would have taken him a lot longer to get himself back up the field to try and earn points in that race. So yes, he benefited by that circumstance. But it wasn't manufactured, it wasn't engineered, and the rules of the sport were followed. So don't try and claim that he got lucky there and this is the equivalent reverse side of that. This bit's unlucky by comparison. The two scenarios are not comparable. One is part and parcel of the sport. The other is a contrived, fixed event. Hugely different.
That hadn't ever happened, he would have been, 18 points behind anyway. So you need a bit of luck in the sport. It just so happened that...
And again, what you're doing. These are the sorts of comments that validate the strap-on fans, and these are the sorts of things that we get repeated in the comment section by the fools that don't know anything. And this is the education that you're giving them. You're filthy.
Max got it at the last race with a lot of eyeballs and a lot of pressure, and Lewis got it back in April on a damp day in Italy. So, listen, I believe he's a deserving world champion. He delivered absolutely to the highest level, as did Lewis. You can make a great case for both of them to be deserving world champions, but ultimately it was Max who got it, and we just have to say congratulations to him and his team.
Okay, so that's that one. Let's come out of that and let's just go to my channel, whereby I want to show you. If you're not already seen it, check out this one, Brundle's role in Abu Dhabi. It's long, but it's the first example of... I'm going to go through each of these videos done by Sky Sports in the aftermath of Abu Dhabi, where they put in front of the camera each of these pundits, and each of them validates the fix. Because this is what Sky Sports F1 did. They are paid to validate the fix. They all lie. They all deflect. They all draw to the attention things that aren't important. None of them focus on the real problems. None of them explain the rules. None of them explain the implications. They divert. They give out false information. They give out invalid information designed to keep people talking about the wrong things. It is all part of the master plan. They're filthy. And there's lots more to come on this. That'll do on this one.